Growing up as a preacher's kid, I was taught that you don't drink, you don't chew, you don't use the F word, and you don't go with boys that do. Well, I can't say that I did everything that my parents taught me to do, but there was this one thing that resonates in my mind over and over and over again that's actually proven to be an accelerator in both business and life. It's called the 1% factor, and it has the ability to actually shift the biggest F words of your life, including faith, family, finance, fitness, and freedom. And, well, I'm living proof that it works. You see, I didn't go to college. I don't have a fancy pedigree. I wasn't raised in a rich family or a rich area. And yet what I'm about to show you has enabled me to travel around the world, share the stage with 5 U.S. presidents, sing at the Olympics, be able to help grow companies into the hundreds of millions, and even build sales teams into the hundreds of thousands. So how does the 1% factor work? Well, it's a method of mental mastery where you actually retrain your brain to think progress instead of pressure. In fact, you turn pressure into progress or movement forward. You turn setbacks into comebacks. Well, how do you do that? Think about how many people you know right now that actually cave under pressure. And then there's other people who go through far worse things and they turn the pressure into some type of progress or epic stage of success. Think about Oprah Winfrey. Born into poverty, later molested. She's pregnant by the age of 14, has a life of setbacks. And yet she somehow turns all that around and builds a multi-billion-dollar empire. Was it luck? Was it privilege? Or was it her perspective on how to turn setbacks into comebacks? Think about Bethany Hamilton. Just 13 years old, had a dream to be a world champion surfer. She gets her arm bitten off by a shark. I don't know about you, but most of us probably would never have gone back in the water. But what does she do? She applies the 1% factor. She got back in the water, and every single day she just got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, 1% every day until she finally wins that world surfing championship. You see, your perspective on pressure determines your progress. But see, this is not a natural way of thinking. We've got to retrain our brain. Think about it right now. If you think that life is unfair, then you're going to spend your energy trying to prove that to other people. If you think that you're disadvantaged somehow, well, you're going to spend your energy trying to say to other people, it's not fair. But if you can see life as an opportunity and that every setback is a potential comeback, then you can shift anything in your life. I mean, think about the bow and arrow. It's the pressure or the tension behind that arrow that actually creates the trajectory. Think about the sonic boom or the breaking of the sound barrier. It's that pressure that's built up that when the plane breaks through the pressure creates the boom. So everybody do this with me. Just say boom. Oh no, say it like you mean it. Say boom. Boom means breaking out of mediocrity. Let me give you an example. So growing up, I was teased and bullied a lot by the boys because I was a skinny, scrawny, tomboy scrapper. I didn't have any natural athletic ability, but I had this dream. I was going to be the first white girl on the Harlem Globetrotters. So my dad sits me down and he says, baby girl, I'm never going to tell you you can't do something just because you're a girl or just because you're tiny. But I am going to tell you that if you want to play this sport, basketball, well, you're going to have to outthink, outwit, and outpractice everyone else. So that day, I remember 5th grade, I determined that there wasn't going to be any boy that was going to tell me what I could or couldn't do. And I certainly wasn't going to let someone else's opinion of me dictate my future. So I started to learn the 1% factor. My dad said, baby girl, just get better every day by 1%. So every day, I practiced a little harder than anyone else. I shot more free throws than anyone else. I practiced my ball handling skills more than anyone else, until eventually I was averaging 23 to 28 points a game. And I got picked up for the junior Olympic basketball team. But soon I realized this doesn't just work for sports. You can actually apply it to those biggest F words in your life: faith, family, finance, fitness, and freedom. I mean, think about it. In the area of faith, what would that look like? Maybe just as simple as just pray a little bit more, spend more time studying things that are good and lovely. What about your family? Maybe progress every single day is just saying, I love you, just a little bit more, and being intentional with your words. Maybe it's coming home 30 minutes earlier from work so you can spend more time with your kids before they go to bed. See, this type of method of mental mastery, it actually requires us to rewire some things. It requires us to start to resonate things that are good, positive progress. Well, what does it mean to resonate? The word resonate actually means to amplify or multiply. So let's go back to the family example. Now, I've been married 24 years, and I learned early on that if you resonate negativity, anger, hatred, then it magnifies or compounds into division and potential discord and divorce. However, if you make it your intention to resonate or amplify love, joy, peace, forgiveness, kindness, gratitude, then all of a sudden you have a family of greater unity. See, your perspective impacts your progress. So what are you resonating? It's like geometric progression, right? You know the story of the penny? It's something so small, and yet a penny doubled every single day for 30 days can become over $5 million. Problem is, this is not our natural way of thinking. You know, researchers actually tell us that we have something called the negativity bias, which means that we tend to naturally, our brains naturally resonate negative stimuli. Oh, maybe that's why we replay that negative conversation over and over and over. Or we replay that trauma that happened to us years ago over and over and over again. And it will continue to replay unless we boom. Everybody say boom. Breaking out of mediocrity. You see, I'll never forget, one day I was coming home. I had two little babies, two little kids, and I was coming home from the grocery store. I turned the corner to our subdivision, and I saw big black billows of smoke coming out the top of our house. Now, naturally, I immediately started to resonate every negative emotion you can imagine. Where are my kids? What about the dog? I see my husband out there with a water hose trying to put out the fire, and I immediately realized this is trauma. But as soon as I realized that my kids were okay, my husband's on the outside of the house, and I realized that I don't have to be in panic mode, I shifted into critical thinking. See, I had been spending years teaching my brain how to resonate positive outcomes. I began to immediately assess the situation and realize that people process trauma very differently. Right? Like some people were crying, some neighbors were freaking out, and then there were other neighbors who literally pulled out their lawn chairs and beer coolers and they watched our house burn for hours. But that day, I sat in almost an out-of-body experience of complete and total peace. What was going through my mind was all things work together for good. All things work together for good. I don't know how, but this is going to somehow work together for good. And just this sense of peace and gratitude overwhelmed my natural negativity bias. A reporter walked up to me and said, "Ma'am, why is it that you're so calm?" I looked at him and I said, "This is a chapter of my life, but this is not the end of our story." And as he walked away, I stepped back, I found a little curb and I sat on it. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching my house burn down. I'm watching our possessions, so many of them, go up in smoke. And yet gratitude and thankfulness was filling my heart. And I sat there that day and I wrote this little song that just goes, "Thanks for the joy that you've given to me. Thanks for your love unconditionally. Oh, thanks for peace in the midst of this storm. God, I thank you. Yes, I thank you, 'cause you've been faithful, faithful to me, God. You're faithful, and your mercies I see. And when I look back on my life, the message is clear. God, you're faithful, and I'm just grateful. And that day, despite the trauma, I found this place of absolute peace in the midst of the storm. But I have to admit, it has not always been that way for me. 10 years before that fire, I was an award-winning country music artist. I married a rodeo cowboy, and in 7 months of marriage, he left me. Broke my heart. I spiraled into such negativity, my self-talk, my shame, my hatred, my anger. I was not practicing the 1% factor, and I certainly wasn't resonating anything positive. I fell into anger and discord, and I just wanted to have my way and get back, and suddenly it got darker and darker until I spiraled down into a state of complete suicidal depression. And I'll never forget the day I was in the worst spot of my life. And I turned on the TV and a commercial came on. And it was a commercial for a motivational spiritual event. And I remember being so mad, looking at the TV and saying, all right, God, if you're real, then meet me at that event, or else that's where I kill myself. Well, I went to that event, and obviously something happened because I chose to live and not die. And I had an awakening of consciousness that day that reminded me of the 1% factor, reminded me of the things I had already overcome. And that day, I made a decision that I wasn't going to give up, let up, or shut up. Instead, I was going to use my life to help somebody else get up from similar circumstances. I determined that there was not a circumstance I could not overcome. And so that day, I left that event and I began to apply the 1% factor of getting a little healthier every single day. I started studying the brain. I started studying psychology, neuroplasticity. I started studying my scriptures again, and I started studying spirituality until finally I realized that my pressure, the pain, is actually the source of a platform for my power. And I realized that day that even though we might have a negativity bias, we can either stay in that negativity bias or we can choose to get up. And that day, you know what I did? Everybody say boom. Boom. Okay, say it like you mean it. Say boom. Boom. That day, I got up and I broke out of mediocre thinking. And my son, when he was only 11 years old, we started to see how this duplicates to other generations. When he was 7 years old, he got stung in the middle of the night 4 times by a scorpion. Now, needless to say, that was a traumatic night. In fact, it was a little freaky for all of us. We couldn't sleep for a couple of weeks. Why? Because we were resonating the fact that there could be more scorpions underneath our sheets, right? So we realized very quickly that fear is a natural emotion. In fact, it's a positive emotion if you're being chased by a bear. But fear, if you meditate on it or resonate fear, it can become debilitating. So that night, we sat down with our son and we said, listen, we want to tell you a story. There's a little boy, he was a shepherd boy named David. And he actually had to kill a lion and a bear in the middle of the night to protect his sheep. But they were a setup. That lion was a setback. That was a setup because one day, David was going to have to kill a giant named Goliath. And it would give him the rulership as king over a nation. Well, that night, we told our son, you know, that scorpion, it's your lion. And it's preparing you to one day slay greater giants in your future. Well, 2 years later, my son comes home, and he walks up, and he's just come home from the pet store, and he says, Mom, Dad, I have a new pet. And he holds out a 6-inch emperor scorpion. I looked at him, and I didn't say just no. I said, hell no, you're not bringing that into my house. And that day, I looked at him and he goes, Mom, Dad, this isn't about a scorpion. This is about me overcoming my fears and proving that what used to enslave me, I now have dominion over, and I walk in victory. We recognized that day that our son was having an awakening of consciousness, and he was applying that 1% factor to his own life. 2 years later, he takes that same story and he enters a national speech and debate competition, and he ends up winning first place, scholarships, and goes on to become a serial entrepreneur. See, I don't know what it is right now that you've got going on that is a pressure that has enslaved you. I don't know what one of those 5 areas that you need to focus on just a little bit more every single day. But what I do know is if you just look at those areas, let's look at faith. Again, can you pray a little longer? Your family, can you be a little nicer? Your fitness, maybe just turn off the news tonight, go for that walk you've been putting off and do it consistently. Finances, maybe you do need to start your own business. Maybe it's just as simple as putting away some of those extra expenditures and applying it towards your debt. In the area of freedom, well, I don't know what is enslaving you, or maybe you've got addiction, but maybe 1% is just waking up tomorrow and joining that recovery group. Whatever it is, do something every single day. 1% get better every single day. And remember, when you have a setback, don't take a step back, but get ready for your comeback, because sometimes a setback is actually a set up for you to rethink, reboot, recalibrate, or even reinvent your faith, your family, your finances, your fitness, or your freedom. What do you need to change today? Whatever it is, give it at least 1% every single day. Thank you.